From 2 Keto LLC, it's Keto Woman Podcast with Daisy Brackenhall.
Hello Keto Lovelies, I'm Daisy Brackenhall and I've spent most of my life struggling with my weight and confidence and have always had a difficult relationship with food. Even when I finally got to my target weight, after weight loss surgery and eating low carb, I couldn't maintain it and I was miserable. Keto has given me the freedom to fall in love with food again, without the constant gain, loss, guilt, virtue cycle of before. Health and happiness is where it's at now, running on fat. Welcome to the Keto Woman Podcast. Each week I'll be chatting to inspirational women, maybe even the odd man, to discover the secrets to their success so that I can share them with you. So what is keto? Keto is a way of eating that enables you to switch your body's main fuel source from sugar to fat. Who doesn't want to be a fat burner, right? But how do we achieve this? A great place to start is by keeping carbs to 20 grams or less per day. So things like leafy greens and above ground vegetables, plus some nuts and seeds and the incidental carbs you find in things like dairy. Moderate protein scaled to your lean body mass, and then fat to satiety. Once you're in the swing of things, you can tweak it to suit you. Make your own personalised keto. I'll be asking my guest each week what their keto looks like to show you just how flexible and fabulous this way of eating can be. I'm not a doctor, and most of my guests won't be either, so we can't give you medical advice. It's always best to work with your own doctor because they know you and your medical history and so have access to the bigger picture. Thanks, Gabrielle Dubuc, for supporting me and this podcast by making a pledge at my Patreon page. Do you want to hear your name here at the top of the show? Are you enjoying this podcast and would like to help me make more episodes? Then head to my Patreon page at patreon.com/KetoWoman or hit the support button on the Keto Woman Podcast website. It means a great deal to me and you will get to headline the show just like Gabrielle did today. This week's extraordinary woman is Miriam Bair. Miriam is mother to 6 beautiful children, and she and her husband Chris own and operate their own business called Keto Chow. Miriam describes Keto Chow as an ultra-low carbohydrate complete meal replacement shake that is delicious. Miriam enjoys learning and teaching her children about the ketogenic lifestyle and how to be healthy. She tries to be kind and happy and serve those around her. You can find out more about Keto Chow and how it came about on their website, Keto Chow XYZ, or I should say for Americans XYZ. And if you want to try it out for yourself, you can get $10 off your purchase by using the promo code KetoWoman10. It was really interesting to find out about Miriam's busy family life as well as their business making keto shakes. I'm thrilled that there are people out there like Miriam and her family who can make a living serving the keto community. Welcome, Miriam, to the Keto Woman Podcast. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. It's lovely to be speaking to you today. Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about your life before keto and what led you to go looking for keto in the first place?
Really, we started keto because my husband wanted to lose weight. He had tried Soylent for a while. That's a nutritionally complete shake drink that he wanted to just have instead of having breakfast and lunch, so he could kind of work through lunch and get off early and come home with us and just be able to not have to do work to do his breakfast and lunch. And
so it was a convenience thing, basically. He just wanted something he could take quickly that was compliant.
Yeah, so he really just wanted something convenient. He thought, well, if I have this, I can kind of restrict my calories also and not snack, and then I should be able to lose weight. And so he started in with Soylent. He actually did DIY Soylent for a while, and he did lose about 12 pounds. And it didn't really go anywhere from there. He actually gained weight back, but he still liked the idea of a shake. And so he started playing with the idea of keto, he actually was reading on different forums and on Reddit, just in different places, and seeing all these, massive weight loss results. And we didn't need to lose a ton of weight, but enough weight to, really feel better about ourselves. And mostly he just wanted to lose weight and feel better. And so he was seeing all these things about keto, and he's like, well, how do I do a keto shake? I really would like to do a keto shake. So he found some DIY recipes, and he's like, I've been researching keto for a while. I kind of, we really want to try this. Okay, let's try it. So he made himself a keto shake with like chia seeds and coconut flour and, all this stuff. And it tasted horrible, but he's one that he'll stick to something even if it tastes bad, So he stuck to it for a week or so, and he thought he was getting into ketosis, but he was just feeling really ill, and he got the keto flu, and he's Googling keto flu, and that's a real thing. So he got keto flu, and he realized he needed electrolytes, and kind of researched more about, keto flu and how to do keto properly. And then he did better after that, and really got into a ketogenic state, and was feeling a lot better and losing weight. And he still wanted to go on the keto shake idea. So he was playing with different ideas of how to make himself a shake that he would like instead of something that he just didn't like. So we kind of went into keto and also went into a business of making a keto shake at the same time. So we have a business, and it's called Keto Chow, and it is a keto shake.
Right. So, and he started on his keto journey before you, is that right?
Yeah, like a year and a half before me. I was digging my heels in. I didn't want to do something hard.
That was the main reason. Why was it that it took you a while to get on board?
Yeah, I just could see all the negatives. There's just the things that I'd be missing out on, and that's what I was focusing on. So I actually didn't start keto, till like a year and a half after he did. We were already doing our shake and selling it to people before I even got on board.
And did you feel, what was your life like before? You said he started it because he wanted to lose weight, but, what were the reasons that finally made you want to get started? Are there things that were impacting you that you felt would benefit from starting keto? Yeah,
I did it pretty much the same. I wanted to lose weight too. I did paleo for a while, and I really liked, it was actually Whole30. I liked losing, I lost 30 pounds on paleo, but then I just go back to the old habits, and I would eat the same after a while and gain the weight back, and then be sad. So
just the typical sort of yo-yo dieting trend that most people find. And so what's different about keto? Why hasn't that happened for you with keto?
Well, it has. It's hard to ignore that kind of passion that Chris had for keto. After a while, seeing how he felt better, seeing how much weight he lost, just seeing the benefits and how excited he was about it, and teaching everybody. We always talk about how it's a kind of a gospel, it's a keto gospel. You can't not share it once you, feel the benefits of it. And so I finally said, okay, I'm just going to stop fighting this. I'm going to jump in. And immediately, you start seeing the results. The clarity of mind is the biggest thing for me. And I notice it when I'm driving the most. I'll be driving, and I can just make that split decision if I'm going to go, if I'm not going to go. I don't have to feel like I'm lagging and waiting for my brain to click, click, click. Okay, you can drive now, So that was the very first time I noticed it, was the clarity of mind. And I really enjoyed that the most. And of course, I lost weight. I lost that same 30 pounds that I kept losing and gaining and losing and gaining. And I feel much better. And we actually got our kids on not that long ago. It was about September of last year. So we've been doing keto for a long time before our kids finally got on board. But we have keto food in the house, and we don't, buy things, at least very often. We don't buy things that are not keto. So all our meals that we make are keto, and our kids just eat that way. They're used to having fathead crust, and they're used to having, different things that are keto, and no bread and no pasta.
And how many kids have you got? You've got quite a sizable family, I believe.
Yeah, we have 6 children. One thing I didn't tell you is we have 2 sets of twins.
Wow.
So it's pretty awesome at our house. We have 2 16-year-old girls, and then a 14-year-old girl, and then 2 12-year-olds, boy and girl, and then an 8-year-old boy.
Great. And they, in the main, they stick to it. They enjoy keto. Do they? How have they been finding it in this time since they've started? What changes have they noticed?
Well, we have 3 kids that do it very well. Like, they're committed. It's their decision, which I feel like is important. Once you decide that you're going to do this, then it's your baby, and they own it. Those 3 kids own it. The other 3, they'll eat keto with us, but then when they go somewhere else, I think they'll have a cookie or they'll have, other stuff. And they just like the convenience of being able to do things with their friends and, not having to have special things. But the 3 that own it, it's fantastic. My one daughter, who's 14, she actually uses it to kind of control her depression. She's, it's fairly recent that she's had depression, and she feels it very acutely that if she sticks to her keto, then she feels so much better. So that is really cool for her. Yeah,
what a fantastic thing to find at such an early age as well. I mean, I've suffered from depression for a long time, but it's only been so recently, in my 40s, that I discovered this way of eating that helps it to have discovered it back in my teens. I mean, what a fantastic thing for her to have done.
Yeah, it's so cool. My son, who is 12, he actually was diagnosed with epilepsy when he was 3, and he hasn't seized in about 8 years. He seized for a year and a half, and we did a bunch of medicines and tried to get him stabilized seizing wise, and one of them, like the 12th medicine, worked. And I really think that a lot of his problems he has as a side effect of the medication he was on for that year, and so he has some like behavioral issues and I wouldn't necessarily say learning disability. He's just slower at learning and has a hard time paying attention, almost like has ADD. But we've, done different tests and stuff, and they say he's fine, but he's just not on level with the other kids. But man, when we put him on keto, he has so much better brain function. He responds faster. He talks clearer, and he talks to you. Like, he's just totally a different person on keto, and he can feel it like within a few minutes of eating something that he shouldn't eat. And he just is like, Mom, can I eat this? He still has a hard time like remembering what's what, but he just says, can I eat this? Can I not? And he just chooses not to. He makes his own lunches, and he has olives and pickles and cheese and meat and butter, guacamole. It's funny. He has this little bento box, and he just fills it up with a bunch of random things every day, and lots of pickles. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's a great idea, actually, I think, for lunch boxes. I've seen other people doing that, where, like you say, they have those little bento type boxes. And I think Barb was saying it's one of the things she does. She prepares at the weekends a load of different things in the fridge, and the kids just get to pick what they want to put in their lunch boxes every day and make up their own combination. But epilepsy is one of the things that keto is really, really known for, isn't it, with helping?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did hear about, that was actually the first time we'd ever heard of keto, was when he was seizing. They said, if this last medicine doesn't work to control the seizures, we will recommend a ketogenic diet. And so we, brought the papers home, and I thought, how can a kid do this, in the world where all of a sudden you can have nuts and meat and butter? Like, how can I feed my child this way? And I was, totally against it, thinking that we had to live the SAD diet. And, but I would have done it, but then that medicine worked. And the sad thing was, like, seeing what I know now, a few years ago, I wish that would have been the first option. Mm-hmm. I wish they would have said, okay, well, here's something that you can do to try right now, and we'll see how it goes, if it can control the seizures. And I even was reading on different websites about kids who had 300 seizures a day, 150 seizures a day, and they would get on the ketogenic diet. And even though it wouldn't make them completely go away, it made them have a better quality of life. And I just wish that would have been the very first thing they would have had us try.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how changed that would have been for us at the time. I mean, maybe he would have not had to have medicines, and, I just wish, but you can't, change anything. It's just something that would have been cool.
Exactly. And I would always imagine that the reasons for thinking it would be difficult would be the compliance issue. I mean, presumably, when they're young enough, when they're completely reliant on you for every morsel of food you're giving them, it's reasonably easy. And presumably, once they get a bit older and like you say, can start making decisions for themselves and see for themselves the impact it has. But it must be a very difficult thing for kids who are surrounded by their peers eating all the different things that are available. It must be very difficult for them to get motivated and to stay on track. But it sounds like he's doing a really good job of that.
Yeah, he does really good. And he just comes home, he'll come home from an activity and say, hey, at this church function, we had cookies. Can I have a keto cookie? Or can I have a, sugar-free thing or something? And so I do like, those sugar-free treats that have erythritol or stevia or whatever in it, because I just like to keep them on hand for those moments so that my kids don't feel like they have to be missing out. And if I know ahead of time, I can say, okay, well, here, take this cookie with you. And then he can eat it while the other kids are having cookies.
Perfect.
It's not like something we have on a daily basis, but it's something they can have in those moments where they feel like I'm feeling sad, I'm missing out, and I don't want people to feel like, I especially don't want my kids to feel like that, if they're feeling sad, they have to have a treat. But the whole fear of missing out, especially, as they're growing, if it's important to him, then I want him to be able to have it.
Exactly.
The girls are better because they're older and I think they own it more. They just feel like, well, this is a choice I've made. This is how my life is going to be. And I don't need to have something. Their teachers or church leaders will say, what can I get for your girl? What can I get for her? And I'm like, she doesn't need anything. She doesn't need to have a treat. If you want to get him something, get him some almonds. If it makes you feel better to get him something, whatever. But they can bring something themselves, or they can go without. They're fine. They're happy. So
it sounds like a great set of kids you've got there who are not only rocking it themselves, but setting examples for others, I bet, already.
Mm-hmm. One thing you were saying was, reminded me, I met a guy at Breckenridge last week, and his son has type 1 diabetes, and he was diagnosed at 2 years old. Well, it makes sense when you have a 2-year-old, you can feed him what you can change your whole family around, everything, and he'll just automatically be doing those things. Eating those foods because that's just how he lives. But when you have this group of older kids, they're used to wanting these things and, having these old habits that you kind of have to break. And so that I think has been the biggest challenge. My oldest daughter, she wants ramen noodles. And I'm like, it's so not good for you. Well, how come it was good for me 5 years ago? Well, it wasn't good for you 5 years ago. We were just lazy, so.
Yeah, the typical questions that kids have, that great logic. They have a way, don't they, of cutting through all the crap and really asking the pertinent questions. But I imagine with such a large group of kids as well, that it still works, obviously, with some being really full on board and others not so much. I suppose the defining element is that you keep it keto in the house, but then it's up to them. And it has to be up to them, ultimately, what they do outside the house, because you're not with them all the time, are you? So
well, and they're going to grow up and make their decisions, and I want them to look back and say, when I ate at home, and we ate these things, I felt good. It made a difference in my life, and I want to do that for my family. And I think that's what I need to be focusing on, teaching them how to cook and teaching them, what to cook. And we actually have pretty simple meals too. We just do kind of meat and vegetables, salad most of the time. We'll do, some yummy recipes occasionally.
Yes, I was going to ask you what your day-to-day keto looks like and with such a big family. So, talk me through a little bit what a typical day is like.
A lot of times, some of my kids will skip breakfast. My one daughter, Haley, who does keto really well, she will have a keto chow for breakfast because it's super easy for her not to have to make something. So that's what I do, and Chris does, and Haley does have a keto chow shake for breakfast, or we'll fast through breakfast. And then lunch, the kids will make their own lunches with the little bento box. And a couple of them have school lunches, which are not the best. They're horrible. But that's especially my one daughter, who really is pushing back against it. That's her freedom. That's her rebelliousness. If she's going to be rebellious and do that, then I'd rather have her do that than, go do something else, drugs or something. But then for dinner, we'll have meat, fish, mostly beef, probably. We don't have steaks a whole lot because it's a lot of money to get that many for the kids. But we'll do a crock pot meal or soups a lot in the winter time. And I don't know, just mostly meat and vegetable. Broccoli we have probably every day. Broccoli with butter on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that hard, is it? And especially like you were saying, and I do think it's important. It's certainly something that I grew up knowing how to cook. And so it's fantastic if your parents raise you knowing how to cook, because I do think it's it's not an essential part of keto, but it makes keto so much easier, doesn't it? If you know how to cook and find it pleasurable too, making your own food.
Yeah. One thing that we do that is really fun for my kids is I'll just get a calendar and print it out, and then they pick a day of the week, and then they're in charge of the meal for that day. And it has to be keto because half of us, more than half of us eat keto. And so that they can choose what they want to make. And so then they just, my little son, he'll grab a cookbook, and that's when we do the harder stuff because he's like, I want to make that, but he doesn't realize how hard it is. But they'll pick, either simple things like meatballs and cauliflower rice or, whatever. But then they own it. Then they learn how to cook it themselves. And it's actually been interesting because we've learned how to cook in different ways because our kitchen's under construction right now. Our whole house is doing a remodel, and we don't even have a kitchen. We just have a microwave. So they've been learning how to make, spaghetti squash in the Instapot instead of in the oven, and, just different things, which is, that's life skills. If they can learn how to cook and then they own it, we have a rule, no one complains about what it is. You just eat it and be happy. And it's keto, so it's okay, but you can eat just the meat if you want. We would like to make, have them try everything. But one thing about keto is you're trying to eat to satiety. And if you get full, then you're done. That's okay. So that's something that's different that we kind of have to try to wrap our brains around too for our kids, because we've always eat all your food off your plate, eat everything, and you need to just get a little bit, and if you're full, don't get any more, or whatever. So that's cool too.
What fun though. I love that idea of the kids picking a day when they're in charge of cooking the meal. I think that's brilliant. I love it. I would have enjoyed that, I think, when I was younger.
Yeah, we've even gone to the point where they will budget it out, and we take them to the store and, pick up this. Okay, if you're going to do fresh tomatoes or if you're going to do canned tomatoes, how much is it per ounce or whatever? And is it going to be better this way or that way? And we've given them a budget. We've even sent them to the store on their bikes by themselves and say, okay, here's $50, get the meals for the week. And it's been fun to watch them, really stretch and try to think of things, and some things they came home with something that was prepackaged, but they really wanted it. But then they figured out how to make all the other meals without having a packaged thing. So it was interesting to see what their priorities were and how they talked to each other and worked it all out and decided that they really wanted, I can't even remember what it was, actually. Whatever it was that they wanted, the prepackaged thing, they really wanted it. All of them wanted it. And then the other ones, they're making these things from scratch so that they could have the prepackaged whatever
Brilliant.
It was.
So they worked out as a team how to make it work. I mean, brilliant. Mm-hmm. What fantastic keto life skills you're setting them up with. It's brilliant. I love it. So tell me more about this business that you have, your keto chow. You know, what's in it? What makes it different from other shakes that are out there? So
it's a complete meal. That was one thing that Chris really wanted. He wanted it to be able to replace one of his meals. And so it has the nutrients, vitamins, electrolytes that you need for one meal. So it's like a third of your daily recommended. So if you're going to get all of your vitamins, nutrients, you'd have to have 3 of them or get it with your other meals. So it's only a third because it's one meal. But it is whey protein isolate. And then it has just a bunch of other ingredients. It has choline, magnesium, potassium. It's a list. But we try to be really transparent because I hate it when people hide ingredients and things. And I'm sure, so many businesses don't mean to, hide ingredients. But we've noticed, as we've been doing this, we tweak and tweak and tweak and tweak. And we found even like the flavors from the different flavor houses, they're dried on dextrose, which is sugar
really?
and just all these things that are unmarked on packages that are completely hidden, which may be little, but if you have a food sensitivity or something, like that's going to be huge. And I can see why people, stay away from different shakes and products because of these hidden things that you may not even know why you don't feel good if you're drinking them. But we try to make it as transparent as possible so that you can know everything that's in there. So you can get the ingredient list. And another thing that Chris has done is he posts the recipe online. So anybody could make it from scratch if they wanted to themselves. So you really know what's in it because you can just look it up online.
And what kind of feedback have you had from it? What are the types of people that are using it and their motivation for using it and what results are they finding?
Really, I kind of call it training wheels. Because when you're going into keto, you feel like you have to have all these things that you used to have. And by having a shake, it's like a little shortcut. You can have it, say, I had my meal. I didn't have to think hard. It's for the fast, the on the go, the people, or especially when you're just getting into ketosis, learning how to eat properly and saying, I'm going to have this instead of my toast that I used to have, kind of transitioning, I guess. At least now I kind of feel like that. We still drink it, on a regular basis, but I feel like I have enough knowledge now that I don't have to. So, and really we're geared towards people that they've gained so much weight or whatever, and they don't know where else to turn. Either they can't afford bariatric surgery or they're just like, well, I don't know what else to do. I'll try this keto thing and I'm going to try this shake because I can understand it. It's got the macros, set out. I can figure it out exactly and do that for a period of time, and then whatever. After that, they can get off and do regular keto or do it at the same time. So
yes, I must admit, I can understand the appeal. I have a natural kickback to shakes purely because my association with shakes is Slim Fast and Herbalife. So I've been there and done that with shakes, but with those kind of shakes, I should say, because they're very, very different from the shake that you offer. But I know what is appealing with that kind of system And it's actually the same mentality that I use with keto anyway, in that I empty the house of everything that's not compliant.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing you're effectively doing with a shake, aren't you? You can get rid of everything else, and you can have this one thing that, like you say, you don't have to think about it, which is something that I can see would be very appealing to people starting that are finding it very overwhelming, because there is so much information out there about what keto is and what you should be doing, and so many different opinions, that for someone just starting, it can be, well, this is, and I've heard people saying it, this is just too overwhelming. I just don't know where to start. Everything I think about doing seems to be wrong from one person's opinion or the other. I just want something easy to get started with. So I can really see how that would help people like that. And I mean, is that what you've been finding? What is the feedback you get from your customers?
Yeah, that's kind of what we've been finding. We haven't heard a lot about how people, will use it for a while and go off. It's just, you can kind of see it happening, in the amount of orders that they do. But one thing that's super satisfying is when you get somebody that writes back and says, I've drank your shake for 6 months and I've lost 100-something pounds. And it's like, what? That's ridiculously awesome, So people do stick to it and do just the shake. I did for 4 weeks. I did an experiment with my husband, and it was hard, but you really get into a ketogenic state better. Your ketones are higher, and I think it's just simply because I wasn't snacking and having those exact, measurements or whatever. One thing I didn't mention about our shake is it's completely customizable. You add your own fat. So everybody can have the different macros that they need. So it's not just a one-size-fits-all shake. You add heavy cream or butter or avocado oil, whatever fat source you want to add to meet the macros that you need for your body. And so my husband and I are two different people. We have two different weights, two different everything. And so we have two different measurements of heavy cream. We put in heavy cream. I actually do half avocado oil, half cream. And I really enjoy it. But like for our daughters, they'll even use less than I would because they're not as big as I am. So it's cool in that way.
And have you had experience with anyone using it with, conditions like epilepsy, for example, that have found benefit from it?
Yeah, we have a review, actually. I sent it to you. A guy contacted us and he said he was using it to control his seizures. And it's been the first time in his life that he's been able to keep them under. They're not controlled, but, just have that better quality of life, have it, controlled enough that he can actually function. And I think because you can really dial it in and just do the exact same thing every day, or whatever is the exact thing for your body, be quantified. That is the cool thing about, keto chow. And really you could do that with anything, any foods. You just would have to be super specific about it. So this is just a shortcut.
Yes, and I think that is something that works for a lot of people, actually, is to decide if you're someone who can eat the same thing consistently, is to work out a given number of meals that you're just going to rotate, and so you can work out your macros. That's what I'm going to eat. I'm just going to eat that on repeat until I get into the swing of things. And then I'll start switching it up. So it's the same kind of mentality, isn't it? I've read that review, and the thing that I found interesting about the story, and that I could see the real benefit for that particular person, and I think it probably happens with other people with epilepsy, is that he was saying one of the big problems was that he would suffer from nausea a lot, and it wasn't necessarily so much a problem about eating keto, but he often just couldn't face eating. And having the shake on hand was a convenient way to get the nutrients in that he needed without feeling sick, or when he was feeling sick, it was something that he could tolerate and get his meals in that way.
Yeah, and it's so cool to get those emails back from people. We've had people that have used it for depression and epilepsy. We don't hear a lot about epilepsy, but we know people have used it, and just that your product helped me change my life. I mean, that's worth all the work right there.
Exactly. Very satisfying to, not only have a business that you enjoy and you enjoy the product yourself, but that you see that benefit from other people. And what's the next step?
Well, we just are coming out with 9 new flavors, just to give more variety. And then we actually sweeten with sucralose. So a lot of people don't like sucralose, but we like it because it tastes good and doesn't cause an insulin reaction that we've noticed in our testing. But we have one that's coming out that has no sweetener at all. That's a chicken soup that you warm up with butter or whatever. And then one that is going to be monk fruit. So we'll see how those go, because we've got a lot of people saying, well, I won't do sucralose. I only do stevia, which is fine. You need to decide what you're going to do and stick to it. But it'll be nice to have those other options.
Yes, it would be nice, like you say, to have options for people who don't like using that kind of sweetener. Monk fruit is not something I've ever tried. It's not that easy to get hold of here in France, which is where I live. But it does seem to be the new kid on the block as far as sweeteners go. I've seen it. Austin from Rebel Ice Cream was talking about it. It's the sweetener of choice that they use in their ice cream, and it sounds like from what people have been saying about it that it does have quite a good taste, because a lot of people actually don't like the taste. I'm not a fan of stevia, really. The taste of it, I find it,
it has kind
a
of
bit
a bitter.
soapy. So I'll be interested to hear how it goes with the monk fruit, because that that could be an interesting alternative.
Well, a lot of people have a problem with just the whey protein, and so we've been looking into like a beef protein. We've looked into a lot of different proteins, and we're still experimenting. I think that's one thing we'll always just keep doing, just experimenting, changing things, learning things about, the different things we're using. We're changing from magnesium citrate to magnesium malate in the new version. Just little tweaks here and there that just make it a better product.
And being responsive to your customers. Because yes, that is something I was going to ask you, because I know a lot of people do need to avoid whey because they do find it too insulinogenic for them.
We have one product that we keep. It's called the base powder, that has all the vitamins and minerals and nutrients, but it doesn't have the protein or the sweetener or the flavor. So really, you could get that and then add it to whatever protein you want, use whatever sweetener you want. If you really wanted, to make a shake, you have to do a little bit of math to make sure you're getting everything right. But we have it, and we actually sell it a lot internationally, because it costs so much money for shipping just to buy a bag of protein powder, when this way they can buy the base powder and use the protein they can buy locally. So that's, another thing that we got a whole bunch of people asking, well, I don't want to pay that much just for this bag, one bag. Well, this is concentrated, pretty much. And then they can customize it even further than what they could already customize it. So that's cool too.
Yes, good point. Because yes, shipping, certainly when you get into international shipping, it soon adds up, doesn't it? And you've been attending the conferences. I mean, I gather you were at Low Carb Breckenridge. Are you planning on going to the others this year?
Yeah, I would go to as many as I could. It's just hard to leave my kids, and it's hard to leave my kids with my husband, just trying to get everything worked out. The kids go to 4 different schools, and we have 4 different times to drive them there and pick them up. And I just want to be with them, and I'd just take them with us, but then they'd miss school, and that would be hard. But we went to Low Carb Breckenridge. We did KetoCon last year. Our very first one was Keto Fest last year, and it was so fun, and it was just so nice to learn all these new things about keto and to have a different perspective. I think every time you go to a conference, you're just going to learn something new and try to figure out how to apply it. And I've got, my kids, and I can learn something for them, and I can learn something for me, and I can learn something for my spouse, and I can get these new recipes. And I just feel like it's the best thing. You just learn so much. And
exactly. And things change all the time, don't they? So being able to connect with, your community at large like that, it's perfect.
Yeah, we love it.
Yes, I'm certainly looking forward very, very much to Keto Fest this year. I can't wait to meet all these people that I've been connecting with online, to actually get to meet them face to face. It's going to be fantastic. Really excited about it. Well, it's been really interesting talking to you. I like to leave the listeners with a top tip. So what would your top tip be?
I've been thinking about this, and I didn't really come up with anything, but I guess just do what's best for you and your family.
Yes, good, nice and simple. It's certainly my mantra is always to do what works for you, and be your own expert and your own advocate, because it's important, isn't it? And you've got this big family with all these individuals in it, so it's great that you're encouraging them to be their own experts and find out what works for them.
Yep.
Well, it's been fantastic talking to you today. Thank you very much, Miriam.
Thank you.
To get the resources and links from the show, please go to ketowomanpodcast.com. Are you my next extraordinary woman? Maybe you've got an idea for a show, a topic you want to hear about. Let me know how I can tickle your earbuds by dropping me a line at daisy@ketowomanpodcast.com. If you fancy joining me on this exciting adventure and want to help me create new episodes, please go to my Patreon page at patreon.com/KetoWoman, or simply hit the support button on the Keto Woman podcast website. It's thanks to the two keto dudes that I'm hosting this podcast, so please consider heading to their Patreon page at patreon.2keto.com and help them bring you more podcasts like this one. Please help other people hear about and find this podcast by reviewing the show on iTunes and Facebook. Every star and review really does help. It doesn't go unnoticed by me, the people who regularly like, share and comment on my posts. Your support means the world to me. Thank you. This week's quote is from Muhammad Ali Jinnah. There are two powers in the world. One is the sword and one is the pen. There is great competition and rivalry between the two. There is a third power stronger than both, that of the women. Bye-bye, Keto Lovelies.